Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Namaste Tomorrow. Friends, corporate venture capital engages corporates with the right set of startups at any stage of their journey. Let it be, seed to Series A. However, in the midst of the current funding winter, what we are seeing is there has been a drop of CVC participating in the startups funding rounds, which are basically at a later stage. It has dropped by almost 34%. However, interestingly, what we are seeing is, there has been a clear shift of CVC as they have started focusing now on early stage startups. And if the current situation prevails, then we may see almost 60% of the deals globally happening in the startup ecosystem will be on the early stage startups. What we are seeing a similar trend in India, where between January to October 2022, while we have seen an increase in the number of deals, there has been a gradual shift and reduction in the transaction value in the startups. So I think so the deal value is going down. How the number of deals are going up. Globally, corporates groups such as Google, Cisco, 3M are on the forefront of investing through their corporate venture capital arm, and the trend has continued in India with groups like Tata, Reliance taking a lead on investing. Interestingly, more and more corporates are now moving towards it with a little bit of hesitant to invest at an early stage. Shift is now very focused. Corporates are now looking at even investing at early stage startups, not just from the financial return perspective, but also from strategic investments and partnering with them for their growth journey. Friends, that's little bit of data around what is happening globally and what is happening in India. But with that, let me introduce our guest for today. He is a chartered accountant and cost accountant by qualification, with a core finance experience. He has almost 2 decades of experience working with large corporate houses and a senior management position. Having spent over 5 years with Mondelez, he has held a strategic position as CFO in Future Group and Aisha Motors before taking over as a group CFO and head of strategy at Crompton Greaves Consumer Electricals. It's my pleasure to have Kaleeswaran Arunachalam, a friend and a running buddy. So, I think so that's what we share together to share his observation and on impact of disruptive trends in industry and how corporates can sail through by partnering with startups, which can create a long-term value for both of them. So welcome, Kalis, on this show, and happy to have you, and look forward to learning from you as during your corporate journey, at a senior position. Uh, you know, you must have seen a lot of trends, a lot of innovation, corporates, dealing through the challenges that innovation is posing up, and how they are looking at partnering with startup. So, my first question to you is, having spent almost 2 decades in corporate and at a senior position where you see management taking decisions both in terms of how corporate innovation can be done, or how do they partner with startups to create a complete different set of journey. What's your thought on how the digital transformation and corporate innovation is shaping up, and any examples that you can give during your journey.
Sure. At the outset, thanks a ton, Utpal, for this opportunity, and it's a great platform to come and join and share my views. And I'm sure it'll also be a great opportunity at some point to connect with budding entrepreneurs on the startup platform to see what are the new emerging trends that's happening in various industries. So to start with, I'll actually give a very interesting example, which I can go back and relate to in the future group days. There used to be a company called as Future Ideas. So while people always saw that as to there are on the front end, you could see a lot around what's happening on Big Bazaar, what's happening on Lifestyle, what's happening on Central, Brand Factory, etc. There was this incubation center which the group started. In fact, if I'm not wrong, almost 2 decades back. So this came out with a very interesting proposal to say that India is not one India. So now we all talk about this. There is multiple India within this country. There's an India A, B, C. It also went to the extent of saying that as to it is not that Mumbai means it's an India A. Mumbai as a city has also got an India A, B, C, and you need to bifurcate the cities on that basis and see how do you need to define your business model. Some of the intelligence that this entire thing that could provide as a which could shift the business model. It worked with some of the world's leading platforms like Palantir to look at what kind of AI and ML that you can use and drive consumer insights. Two relevant examples I'll share on this platform is one, the tool came out with a solution that as to departmental store means we need to have 5 varieties of dal, and you would mean that as to all the 5 varieties will have some proportion to sell, and therefore you buy on that basis on a pan India level. It just broke that with the data, which very clearly said maybe in a market like Hyderabad, Masoor dal will sell more and Tur dal may not be relevant at all. So therefore, what it gave is it gave a predictability in terms of when do you want to stock, how do you want to stock, and after your buy pattern is done, I can create a replenishment model. So first, it gave a clear insight as to what to stock in the store depending upon the city. Absolute AI-driven platform for this to drive the entire intelligence coming in. After identifying what to stock in the city, it also created a auto replenishment cart. So where the consumer buys say 20 items in basket, and once you see 3 months of shopping completed, now from AI it moves to ML, machine learning comes in. It started identifying by saying as to hey, I've seen that every month you're buying atta. It's time for you to replenish. Here is your auto cart filled in with ready order. Do you want to click a buy? The bots come to life and then you do it. So eventually, the shopping experience was made a real delight. These I'm talking about times pre-COVID. So post-COVID, I think this is now part of life. These were sometimes I even think probably ahead of time invention sometimes will not get the right consumer traction. This was one of those examples where you really look at convenience at a very different level as to how can customer really engage in that and take it forward. On top of it, it also said if I find a consumer who's buying strawberry, almonds, and blueberry, the platform started using to say that this guy is a health conscious consumer. Therefore, you can start upselling olive oil instead of selling a normal oil. And therefore, you started creating those pop-ups by saying as to do you really want to now add in an olive oil? This is a dash of benefit that it's going to add to you for your lifestyle. So the opportunities are enormous. Just to add on the top of it, I've seen this how EV has been transforming this off late in my automobile experience in Royal Enfield. People, even the large corporates, are now talking about or even executed spinning off a separate company for EV from the mainstream organization. This is only to ensure that you're going to compete with agile startups. We know what companies like Ather are doing to India. We know what companies like Rivian has done on a global platform. And therefore, it's like eventually you will find even vehicle might become an array of service to the consumer, which is going to cater to a lifestyle experience that he wants. And that's where the digital transformation will really come to life. So I think this is a fabulous platform. There is a lot to do. I do still believe we're just at the tip of the iceberg. Eventually, whether you do it as a startup, accelerator, incubator, whichever model that you look at it, having sharp consumer insights is going to be very critical. What is a problem that I'm going to solve for? How clearly I have defined the problem for the consumer, and what is the kind of solution that I need to define using technology or otherwise will be imperative. And then we can decide which is a model that's going to help us to do this. Future Group did that by having a Future Idea as a separate company. Royal Enfield did that by having an entire product strategy and industrial design based out of UK to get the best of global design to do it. So the models are different for various companies, whether it's large or small. And Ather did the total other way around. The idea is always about getting inventions on table and getting it patented to that extent that there are hundreds of patents that they have done on an EV vehicle. That's another way of doing it. But eventually, underlying thing, whichever way do it, we need to understand that the consumer who needs to be served, that consumer problem needs to be clearly defined and then design the solution accordingly.
Right. I think so. This is a great insight, and absolutely bang on. Being in the corporate, looking at the system, looking at the innovation, looking at the corporate requirement, and how you can engage, for solving that problem with the startup. So, how do you see, the engagement happening between corporate and startups? Do you see that there has been still some kind of a hesitance between corporate and startups to engage, or I think so. There's a real synergy that we are seeing, and they are engaging very well. So, I'm just trying to understand what is your experience so far on the engagement between corporates and startups.
Uh, Let me start with a very different example, Utpal. I think the world started with mentoring. By saying as to was you always need a mentor to learn. How do you want to learn? How do you want to grow about it? And how do you want to do things about it? And how do you want to make yourself a better person? Either technical skills, people skills, or soft skills, whatever that you want to do. You started using mentoring. Now we are very clearly seeing reverse mentoring is a very, very big tool that's happening for people to. I need to unlearn first, and therefore I need to relearn, and I need to be agile enough to do that. Let's apply this to the corporate environment. I think this process is still evolving. I think when you start as a corporate, you always want to be the giant, large guys who want to mentor rather than reverse mentor. If I were to put it that way, in individual level, it has been fairly easier, right? Because your biggest enemy is your success of the past of what you have seen as large corporations. How much agile enough you are when you are asking your business leaders to be open to reverse mentoring. Can the corporate itself start opening themselves to be reverse mentoring? That's step one, to see how do we need to go and make this thing work. Step two, we need to be clearly under appreciating the fact that as to not that all the skill sets the corporate needs is there within. And today you need to look at things for which you need to reach out to outside to see how do you make this faster, quicker, and maybe in an effective and efficient manner. That's a step two, to see as to how do you take this partnership to the next level. Step three, I think you have a model which can be capital intensive or not capital intensive in terms of whether you work with a startup and how do you get the solution in. But those are still the tools on which you need to figure out how do you get the right effective solution for you in the long term. Are you solving for a tactical stroke operational problem with the startup, or are you going to get a strategic intent achieved through the startup? That will decide how is your partnership model going to be. But in a nutshell, I would say corporate India in this journey is evolving. I think the leadership India has evolved, getting into reverse mentoring as a mandate right now. But the corporate India is still in that journey, and we need to give it a little bit more time to do it. But in times to come, it will become par for the course. Today, as you find that as to people would love to go to a big four for an auditing consultancy or a global giant for a strategic business consulting, you will find this also becoming a very, very strong proposition in years to come. It's just a matter of time.
Absolutely. I think the message is loud and clear, Kalesh, that it's the way to go. It's the future where both startups and corporates have to live together, work together, and grow
That's
together.
right.
Right. So, next question, and I think so. I'm just combining couple of thoughts. Do you believe that when we are talking about mentoring and reverse mentoring, corporate innovation program is something which basically is a subset of a mentoring, and it forms part of that. So, do you believe that such kind of a corporate accelerator program is a better way to engage with startups? And my related question is, whether corporate should have any kind of an annual allocation or a budget for innovation. uh, and a direct question to you, in your thoughts, when you are now taking and leading at Crompton, what's your plan for next 3 years on corporate innovation? So I think so. I'm just combining all these questions, but I think so. Those are intervening questions.
I think, see, the partnership methodology that you want to do with the startup depends upon which is the area that you want to solve for. Say, for example, today, if I want to know that I need to achieve manufacturing excellence, I would know that as to robotic manufacturing is par for the course. And there are certain patterns in which I can eliminate inefficiency in the system by bringing in a new technology or a tool. I may not go for accelerator program because I would see that this is something a backend to me. I want this to be the best. Therefore, I just need the tool. But there are areas where I would like to say, as to boss, tomorrow, connected home is a reality. I think it is already coming in, right? IoT is going to be playing a very, very big role. Come 1st of January, all the fans needs to be energy rated in India. So like what you have seen in AC, every fan needs to be a 1 to 5 star. And whatever is going to be a 5 star, by and large, let's assume it will be a BLDC fan, which is less noisy, less energy consuming fan, etc. So which means it is going to operate on a PCB chip. And if it is going to be a chip driven product, I will have ample amount of probabilities that I need to work upon to see how I can leverage this fan as an anchor tool for my house, and ensuring that I make a connected devices right from my kitchen appliances to my living room appliances to my entertainment appliances in the home. As I get into the car, can the house mood be set to the extent that I want to work on? Now, every organization starts its program by saying, I will always have a new product launch calendar, which could be 1 year, 3 year, 5 year. So the bandwidth of the organization will more or less go in ensuring that the existing products are launched pretty well. And these are some of the new innovations that you would never know as to when will be the right time to go to market for it. And that's when accelerated programs becomes really, really good. You pick up few ideas and see as to is this something merit sponsoring, and you want to go ahead and see how does this going to work, and do a seed and see how do you want to take it forward over a period of time. So this will be super critical, and that's the basis on which the entire model for choosing an accelerator or otherwise can be evolved upon. The second question that you asked is around how important this entire NPD or innovation calendar is going to be, and how people are looking at combining your third question as innovation. For me, I think it's high time. It's absolutely high time. Interestingly, if you call every company, there is two words that you'll always see every organization using. I want to be consumer centric, and I want to have an innovation lab within the organization. Now, what does this mean? It means that I want to solve a problem the consumer has got by giving a superior value proposition to what is available already in the market. So that's the underlying principle that I want to do it. To address that, I am going to have an innovation lab that is going to bring in a plethora of products or services over a period of time, which will create delight in the minds of the consumer. Now, there are two changes that is happening at this point of time. One, the world is getting things replenished in a fast manner. So the earlier era of where longevity is the only way in which you want to see replenishment is coming away. I want to be contemporary in terms of replenishment. So whatever is in trend, I wanted to ensure that I'm also part of it. So what is that you did as an innovation lab for a 5-year program may not be relevant as much as once you get into the first year itself, because it's an evolving pace in which you need to do. Now, as corporates, do we have bandwidth to do all these things and take it up and try and take the risk to fail? Some may, some may not be. In areas that you choose, that as to it is an absolute must for you to play, and at the same point of time, you wanted to ensure that I cannot take the capital risk of putting everything into behind it and put in where it could derail my current innovation platform itself. It's a great opportunity to start setting up an innovation budget and start working with the ecosystem of startups and see where can you play around this and how do you want to go about it. Now, coming specific to Crompton, I think we have just got our innovation center that has been set up in Mumbai a couple of years back. It's a world-class innovation center that we have set it up. We are looking at IoT as one of the significant verticals within that. Connected home is going to be a principle that is going to be a reality very, very soon. So in that basis, we are evaluating opportunities at the appropriate time to see which place and where we can try to solve for a consumer insight, which is going to give a superior proportion. The example that I always use is that where can a startup play a differentiated role when you have these budgets allocated is solving for the unknown. I think we all need to acknowledge the first fact is the known is only the unknown. So therefore, that unknown, a simple example to make it easy is that when debit cards and credit cards were ruling the world, and with cash being along with that, people never thought you would need a Google Pay or a Paytm to do it, right? It was not a necessity. I'm sure no consumer survey or consumer visit would have given you an insight that as to you need to come out with a Google Pay to ensure that the service levels of payments is going to be easing out. That's where the startup make a difference, and that's what we wanted to see as to, boss, what are those unknowns and unsets that's there in the market which can be a strong business proposition. And if those are very very clearly defined depending upon the industry that you would play with, corporates will be very very keen to start this partnership journey.
Right. Right. No, I think so. This is a very good insight, and it's a very good message for startups also as they look forward to being part of your corporate innovation journey. Uh, I cannot stop myself asking your personal thoughts on buying versus building. As we see more and more corporates trying to acquire startups rather than building that capacity internally. What's your personal thought on it? Well, which is a beneficial thing for a corporate to do?
See, there is no answer to it, Utpal, if you ask me. I think there is no straight-jacketed answer to it as to whether you want to buy or a build. It depends upon the situation and the problem statement that you want to look at. Now, there is one opportunity to say that as to what is the market that I want to capture, and what is a differentiated principle that I want to do with it. For example, if you take Geo as a platform, one of the clear thought, if I have to take that as it's available to all of us in front of our eyes to see, is that Geo never wanted to play as a telecom. I think they were absolutely clear. It's not going to offer you a calling facility or a messaging facility and going to charge monthly on that. It's going to offer you a plethora of service that is driven through data, and that data is going to be the right to everyone. To the extent that the guy who is in Yavatmal will be able to see the same content on a social media, to the extent that somebody at the national capital will be able to see it. Now, by doing this, you're democratizing data, and by democratizing data, you're also ensuring that the consumer aspirations for products really go up. The moment the consumer aspirations for the products go up, which is of even premium categories, what you need to figure out then is only the affordability. It could be a typical marketing strategy of doing a low unit pack, or you do a financing strategy to get the penetration in, etc. Now, in this system, if you have to go on a very very fast paced methodology, you will find that as to buy is probably a better model, because you need to give an array of service with data as the underlying. And if you start building one by one in a linear proposition, it's going to take significant of time and you would lose market. So you go to market with the platform available, and the platform can be scaled up at any point of time in a disproportionate methodology. Buy makes a lot of sense to do that. Areas where I would see build probably looks to be very very strong is EV vehicle. I think if I were to take a look at it, I think there's always this noise that is there in the market that what would the large players do. You take the examples of the Tatas or Marutis of the world in terms of four wheelers, or the Royal Enfields and Bajaj of the world in terms of two wheelers. It's very very easy for this company to say that, hey, should I go and make an acquisition in India or outside? Should I go and make an technology that comes in to help me to do this? The principles that probably you need to so here eventually you need to have the signature of the brand needs to be the same. So therefore, if it is, say for example, a Bajaj, the Bajaj signature needs to be consistent, whatever that you acquire also over a period of time, and the consumer experience remains the same. And therefore, that's why you see EV proportions are largely a build. Other than the tools that you want to build the EV can still be acquired to fast pace it. So two different school of thoughts depending upon the industry and what you want to do decides whether you want to buy or build. Eventually, you need to be nimble-footed enough to change the strategy. I think fixated mindset will not help. Probably you need to have a growth mindset and be agile and to take those entrepreneurial bets at appropriate time will really, really be yielding results.
Yeah, I think so. That's a great insight, and there's clearly an interplay between corporates and startup. When it comes to working together. Uh, I'm conscious of time and need to respect that time also. But before we, and one quick question to you is, what's your parting notes, for startup entrepreneurs on how they can engage with your company?
Yeah, sure. I think I will leave it with two things. One, be ambitious. I think sky is the limit. I think really, really be ambitious. I always believe constraints for organizations and most importantly for startup is not money, people, or technology. It's the imagination. And if we remove the constraint of imagination out, I think the world is really there to be conquered. But at the same point of time, one caution that I will also like to state is that have strong unit economics. I'm a fundamental believer in that in any organization, whether it is a new gen or the traditional organization that has been there in the past. Unit economics is of absolute criticality. Without that, suddenly you will find that as to what used to be a promising start, when it gets into scale up, will have roadblocks. So, very, very strong unit economics is critical. So, that's the two parting notes that I would leave. With Crompton, I think fundamentally help us with the unknown. We'll be really, really looking forward to startups who can help and state that as to where is this unknown coming from and what difference that unknown can make to consumer. We would really like to evaluate those startups with those ideas.
Absolutely. I think, startups have a clear message, try to find out, what is unknown, how it can fit into your thesis of innovation and then get engaged. So thanks, Kalesh, for sharing your insights on how startups can play a pivotal role and contribute to the growth journey of corporates. This reflects very clearly that the partnership with the startups, it's not just nice thing to have. I think so now it's becoming more and more critical. And we at 100x will be very happy to help corporates in creating such partnerships. So thank you, everyone. I think so, Kalish, it's a very interesting session. I think so. This journey should continue. Probably we can certainly come up with another session with you where we'll get more insight from you. How corporates can and startups can work together, how they can engage in a better way, and obviously lay down a lot of principles, a lot of thought process for both startups and corporates together. Thank you,
Absolutely.
everyone.
Thanks, Utpal.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, and thank you everyone for joining this session. Stay tuned for more interesting sessions to come up. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. Happy weekend, everyone.